Are we live? 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 Somebody tell me in the comments if we're live, and then we'll go ahead and get started with this here live stream on a Monday night, an off day for the New Jersey Devils. They didn't even practice today. They just got off of a back-to-back. They beat the Anaheim Ducks, and then they lost to the Vancouver Canucks in kind of embarrassing fashion. I thought they actually kind of played better than the score said, but in the end, they lose to a team that just traded away their captain and their superstar player, so that's still inexcusable. And Stanley says that we are live, so we are live. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into us here on Speaking of the Devils. I'm your host, Ryan Novozinsky, joining you from my home studio right here in lovely downtown, the hustling, bustling metropolis of Ewing, New Jersey. This stream is all about Tom Fitzgerald. I feel like that's the most pressing topic for the New Jersey Devils right now. So we're going to unpack all of that today, plus the latest that I'm hearing about Fitzgerald, his job status, and we'll dive into that. But first, we have to thank our friends over at New Spine for sponsoring us here on Speaking of the Devils. With 7 locations, they are New Jersey's leading institute for minimally invasive spine surgery. Live your best life pain-free. Visit New Spine. That's nu-spine.com to find a location near you. Once again, nu-spine.com to find a location near you. Once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Let's dive right into this Fitzgerald stuff. So, I mean, where does all this noise come from? I feel like this is, this kind of just, didn't creep out of nowhere, but, I feel like there's definitely some confusion because of the context of the Devils and their injuries over the past couple of weeks. The fact that they're third in man games lost to injury this year, one would be forgiven for wondering, hey, I feel like the GM shouldn't be blamed for this. Well, there was a report yesterday from Daily Faceoff's Arthur Staple that basically he's saying that he talked to league sources, and he not only implied that Fitzgerald was on the hot seat, but he even brought up replacement candidates. So he kind of eulogized him and then talked about his replacement candidates before the firing even happened. Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet, the 32 Thoughts podcast, you guys know him well. He said this morning that he doesn't believe Fitzgerald's in danger, to which Staple, a few hours later, said that he now believes that he's safe too. With kind of this flux of reporting going on, I decided to dive into it myself. And what I can tell you is that I spoke to a team source. I want to emphasize that, a team source who has a direct line to ownership and knows what they're thinking. And they said that Fitzgerald has the quote-unquote full support of Devils owners Josh Harris and David Blitzer. His job is not in jeopardy right now. The person requested anonymity due to the sensitivity of the situation, as you can imagine. But that is the latest on Tom Fitzgerald. I would say, what is my dog doing? What is my dog? Oh, he's just he's trying to chew the wire there. Anyways, I would stress that there's a couple things that can happen here. Of course, if the Devils miss the playoffs, I feel like that changes everything. I feel like even, if I were the owners, I would say that them not going on a deep playoff run should change anything. Injuries be damned. I mean, there are issues with this roster up and down despite the injuries. So I would definitely say that his job should not be safe. If they don't make the playoffs, definitely not. But if they don't go on a deep playoff run either, that's another concerning thing, because you're in the prime years of a core that is locked up to these excellent valued contracts. That's what Fitzgerald is so lauded for across the league. Oh, you locked up this young core to great value contracts. Well, if you don't have anything beyond a second round appearance to show for it, and that second round appearance coming, by the way, in this core's first playoff appearance, 2017 withstanding, then I feel like that should change things too. I will also reserve the fact that the Devils owners could change their minds if something wild's happened. I'm going to call this the Giants rule, okay? And what I mean by that is, look a couple years ago, whenever the Giants fired their coach Joe Judge, okay? A couple days before, Adam Schefter of ESPN, he leaked out that, Joe Judge's job is safe. The Giants are going to roll with him for another year. And then Joe Judge had just this bizarre, 10-minute long press conference to answer just one question at a press conference. It was 10 minutes long, and it was an embarrassment to the franchise. And there was also weird things where he was QB sneaking, I think on 3rd and 8 or something like that. It was something ridiculous like that. So what I mean by that is, if something bizarre and embarrassing and wild happens, I feel like that could also change the tides here for Fitzgerald. But now let's talk about the why of all this, right? Let's talk about maybe the in defense of Fitzgerald and the arguments against Fitzgerald. First of all, we should say that GM firings during the season are very rare. Granted, there was one today, so that might not have aged poorly, or that might have aged poorly when I wrote that in my notes today. But it doesn't happen too frequently. You can also sit here and say that Fitzgerald wouldn't have a job if the Devils didn't fire Ray Shero, the late Ray Shero, mid-season. So that's another factor in this that you have to, there's precedent there that the Devils have done this in the past. I get that, but I just don't think that right now that this is anything that's going to happen to Tom Fitzgerald. But let's talk about, again, like I said off the top, in defense of Fitzgerald and the arguments against. I feel like we'll start with the in defense. In defense of Fitzgerald, he's shown that he's able to make the splashy move, trade, free agency. It doesn't always work out. The examples of it being, and these aren't the always work out, these are just the examples overall. Timo Meier, he traded for him. That was a big fish, and he acquired him. Jacob Markstrom was a big fish at the time, and he acquired him. Dougie Hamilton and Andre Palat. I would say I hesitated to put Andre Palat in this category, but just because of the contract in general and because of the fact that he was probably the second best forward in that free agent class, I would put him in that category as well. So he's proven that he can do that. Does it always work? No, but he can get these guys here. Granted, he throws a lot of new move clauses, and that ends up biting him in the rear end, but we'll get to that in a little bit. The second point in defense of Fitzgerald I have is stability, right? And we just talked about that. These GM firings mid-season are so rare, it takes a train wreck like the Buffalo Sabres for that to happen. And that's what happened today. Kevin Adams was fired and replaced with Jarmo Kekalainen. But today, as of today, I don't see the Devils as being as big of a train wreck as the Buffalo Sabres, who haven't been in the playoffs in years, and I think since 2011 or something ridiculous like that. The third and I think final defense of Fitzgerald is that, the players like him. They definitely do, that's for sure. And just kind of pulse in the room, that's the vibe that I get as well. That can be viewed as a positive. That can be viewed as he's a players guy, and, he's a players first kind of guy. He played in the NHL, so that adds another layer to it. He knows what these players go through. It could also be a negative thing. This could be a positive and a negative because, it could be, this could also mean that Fitzgerald isn't hard enough on these players. And that's why he hands out these no movement clauses like they're candy. And, he's not exactly as cutthroat as some of the other, GMs across the league might be. I mean, this isn't a player example, but let's go back to Lindy Ruff. I mean, it took him a while to fire Lindy Ruff, even though all the signs were there that he should have fired Lindy Ruff. And he made it Fitzgerald sounded, heartbroken because of it. And I understand it. I'm not going to rip on the guy because, they were very close and you get that. And it's a tough decision to make. But at the same time, you got to make cutthroat decisions if you're going to be a cutthroat GM. And Fitzgerald hasn't really proven that he could be a cutthroat GM. So you want to see a little bit more of that in him. Now let's talk about the arguments against. And I feel like there's a lot more of these. He can't seem to move on bad contracts the same way other GMs do. I'll give one example here. Drury in New York, who I don't even think is as highly lauded across the league as some of these other top GMs are. But he was cutthroat when he got rid of Barclay Goodrow, when he got rid of Jacob Trouba. There are other examples across the league, but I feel like those two kind of stand out of my mind. That's the one that's been referenced in the press box over the past couple of days. Fitz, and I mentioned this last point, he needs to be more cutthroat. I can't think of any other time that I've heard at least a trade veto being leaked out. Trade vetoes were leaked out today. That's, 32 thoughts. Elliot Freeman mentioned that there was so much smoke that the Devils had trades and they tried to trade and they were vetoed. And we can put two and two together. The heavy implication there is that it was Andre Palat and Dougie Hamilton. I don't know that for a fact. I'm going to try to talk to them at practice tomorrow, but that's the heavy implication there. And that's another problem. Again, these other GMs find a way. Fitzgerald needs to start finding a way. I feel like the time to move Dougie Hamilton was this summer when he still had some value. There were reports and it was leaking out there at the time. I think it was Pierre LeBrun, right after July 1st, whenever Hamilton's no trade protection kind of came in. It was there were rumors out there that they were going to trade him, but I feel like his value was so much higher. So I don't understand. It just adds to the more cutthroat aspect of it. Another thing that we just referenced as well is the no move clauses and the no trade clauses that he hands out like candy. I reported that to death yesterday, but it's another issue. I mean, he's tied for first with the Carolina Hurricanes and the Edmonton Oilers with 15 no move clauses or no trade clauses on the player's current or pending contract for the Devils. So that's not great. I get you need to sweeten the deal. I totally understand that, especially if you're going to a high tax state like New Jersey. But giving Palat a no move clause, that's just one example. I don't think it's that necessary. I feel like that contract itself, being $6 million per year, is a no trade clause in and of itself. It's not necessary, and now it's biting you because he's not able to, move off of these guys, and that's been widely reported. Now, the other thing, another point, and this is, again, an argument against Fitzgerald. I feel like there's an aspect of Fitzgerald that's kind of turning these Devils into interest kings of sorts. And what I mean by that is they're interested in the top guys. They're interested in these big fishes. But do they always land them? Not necessarily. I mentioned the examples off the top. They landed Timo. They landed Markstrom, who was a big fish at the time. But other than that, I'm going to give you just a few examples here that I remember the Devils being highly linked. Like all the insiders were reporting, the Devils were linked to all these guys. I'm going to give you the list right now. This is chronological order, I think. Kevin Fiala, remember him? Alex DeBrincat, Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk, Connor Hellebuck, Jonathan Marchessault, Steven Stamkos, times two. He's been linked to him now, and when he's not a big fish. And Quinn Hughes. That's the most recent example, as you guys all know too well. I think another aspect, look, the Interest Kings moniker, I think that was actually Boston Globe writer Dan Shaughnessy linked that to the Red Sox, and that they're always like seemingly in on a lot of these big guys, but they can never quite land them. I feel like that's the avenue that Fitzgerald's gone down. It's like you're almost, all these things are leaking out, and it's good. Like I feel like this is kind of a bad thing and a good thing. It's good that he's working the phones, and I can confirm that he is working the phones right now. But until one of these trades is made, you can't just try not to be as leaky as you are right now. Like I feel like that's just it's not a winning strategy, and it might not be coming from him, and it might be coming from across the league. That's totally fair and fine. But as of right now, I just feel like you get your fan base excited, and it just ends up nothing ends up doing from it. Another point I feel like we have to mention is the Quinn quote. I know a lot of people might sit here and say that, oh, it was what is he going to say? He's talking to the Minnesota media. What is he going to say? I feel like it was pretty bad. It was pretty heavy. I feel like if Quinn Hughes really wanted to, what is he going to, people say, what is he going to say? I feel like he could have softened the blow a little bit and not, he could have played it way safer. He could have played it far safer than he actually did. The fact that he said this, and I'll pull up the quote right here. Quinn Hughes yesterday after the game, after his debut with the Minnesota Wild, said, I've got a lot of time for Bill Guerin, for quote unquote sacking up and making a deal like he did. It goes on. There are other teams that probably could have thrown in certain packages like that too, but in the end, they didn't want to do that. Billy did. And he said, I'll remember that. So, I mean, look, it's something that we probably are just reading into too much on the show here and everything like that. And I understand it's kind of like sports talk radio-y topic, but you're going to read into that if he's kind of, he didn't outwardly say the Devils there. He didn't reference them, but I feel like by extension he referenced them because the Devils and the Red Wings were the ones that were tied in rumors there. And I feel like that quote, him saying I'll remember that is one of those things that come extension time, if there's something that tips the scales. I know he wants to play with his brothers, and they've said that outwardly, but it's just something to think about right now. Let's move on. One last thing. This is the last kind of this is the last argument against that I have, and as you guys notice, there's more arguments against than there are arguments for Fitzgerald staying. Your GM should be an advantage. Your GM should be an advantage. I gave you 3 grasping at straws arguments for Fitzgerald staying. I can't really think of a way that keeping Fitzgerald would be an advantage, would be advantageous to the Devils because of everything that I just referenced. Like, unless he somehow turns himself around and has learned from these lessons, it won't start becoming an advantage for him, and it's gonna ruin the Devils' long-term success here. Again, you're handed this golden opportunity when you take the job here, Tom Fitzgerald, and what you've done with it is the Devils have been stagnant, if not worse, each year since then. I understand there's injuries, but you got to build around that. This year, withstanding, because I don't think any GM could have built the depth to withstand these types of injuries, but even still in years past, I mean, and even the small sample size that we saw that when it was just without Jack Hughes and Brett Pesce, I feel like the team was crumbling since then. The stars right now are crumbling. The superstars, I mean, not the Dallas Stars. The stars on the Devils are crumbling around the fact that Jack Hughes is out right now, and they were before that. The top stars. Nico Hischier has 1 point in his last 7 games, and it's an assist. Jesper Bratt has, I think 1 goal in his last 18 games or something like that. That's not great. Ownership must ponder this, must ponder the point of, is our GM an advantage anymore when they're considering his future at the end of the season? Because there's going to be conversations, I guarantee you that. But that's one thing they have to ponder. Is our GM an advantage anymore? Just one of those things. I guess the last kind of point I have here is just the drafting. The drafting hasn't been great, especially in the first round. Chase Stillman, obviously he's gone. Alex Holtz, his first ever pick. Wanted it to work out so well, but it just didn't. It hasn't been great. It hasn't been great. So that's another point, obviously, in the anti-Fitzgerald argument. But yeah, that's about it that I have for the Fitz pros and cons. The last point I want to get to before I jump into your lovely comments, guys, and I promise you I'll get to those soon. And I should add, I actually forgot to do this, but I do want to do this. Real quick, if you guys aren't regular listeners of this show, please start tuning in. We do this live after every game, and it's a blast. But right now, I am going to do this, okay? If we get 5 super chats, I'm only asking for 5, I will do a Devils giveaway. It could be any monetary amount, but it really would go a long way in helping me, guys. It would grow the channel and let us go on the road more. I want to go on the road. I want to be in those press conferences on the road. So if you guys can help us out, it would be a really, really huge help. The last thing I want to get into is how the Devils should pivot from here. The names that are obvious right now that the Devils are linked to, it's Ryan O'Reilly, it's Steven Stamkos, it's the one that I haven't outwardly heard them connected to right now. Sorry, I'll get to one before I mention this one. Braden Chen, I've heard them connected to as well. The one that I haven't heard them connected to, which I feel like we should start hearing them, is Nazem Kadri. I feel like that's another guy that, how many goals did he have last year? I feel like he had a lot. Slippin' Jimmy Nichols, the deplorable Slippin' Jimmy Nichols was telling me about that last week or yesterday. Yeah, Nazem Kadri just last year had 35 goals. I mean, I know that this year it's he's off to. I mean, he's got 28 points in 33 games. That's great. You'll take that. I know he's got a high salary, but if you can somehow get that down, the biggest point of all is that you have your assets now. You didn't throw your assets out at Quinn Hughes. Albeit that would have been a great trade for sure. I would have praised Tom Fitzgerald for doing that. But you have your assets now, and you can spread them across the league. You can start, you can move Nemitz up to address these other upgrades that the Devils, surely need. These holes that, patch those holes. Now go do it. Go do it. Go work the rooms across the league. Don't just put all the eggs in the Quinn Hughes basket. You can put your eggs in different baskets. Can you pull off a Nemitz plus another, plus a bunch of other stuff for a Jordan Kyrou? Could you do a Steven Stamkos move without breaking the bank and with getting some retention? Can you get Ryan O'Reilly semi at the cheap without overpaying for a guy who's, I think, 34 or 36 years old, something like that? That's going to be the key for Tom Fitzgerald. And again, the points that we mentioned before, I feel like this would be a way for him to redeem himself a bit. But that's all I got for the top here, guys. Let's dive into your questions, okay? And we're going to start here with my man, Zach Chin, who gave us a super chat. Thank you so much for supporting us on this level, Zach. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you, my man. Everybody follow Zach's lead, okay? We'll do a Devils giveaway. Stay right here. I have the hat that I want to give away, okay? I'm going to show you guys right now. It might be right here. I think it's right here. It's not right there, but okay, I'll get it in a second. So let's see. Zach Chin says, if there was a time to get Tuck or Tage, it's now. Yes, the Sabres in flux right now. Jarmo Kekalainen, who is known for being a tradey, splash tradey GM. He is now taking over in Buffalo. If there is a time to go get Tuck or Tage, it's definitely now Zach Chin. And I'll tell you what, too. The that's a partner that I feel like that Tom Fitzgerald has history with as well. Damon Severson, remember the sign and trade, one of the first sign and trades in NHL history. I think it was the second sign and trade in NHL history, behind the Matthew Tkachuk sign and trade. But that is something that I would definitely keep my eye out for if I was them. Tage Thompson would be a dream acquisition for this New Jersey Devils team. Alex Tuck's not anything to sneeze at either. That's for sure. But Tage Thompson, if you can get him for even if I feel like you give up a haul for that for sure. Nemitz and throw whatever you were going to throw at Quinn, throw it at Tage Thompson, because he's that special of a player as well. Let's move on. We got our man Anthony Gregano. Thank you so much for supporting us on this level, Anthony. I very much appreciate that. If Novo was a GM, and thankfully I'm not, but I am a very successful NHL 25 GM. If Novo was GM and the ask for Quinn was Nemitz, Mercer, Gritsuk, and 2 high picks, would you have done it? I totally would do that. And I know you just said that you would do it too, Anthony. Yeah, you do that in a heartbeat. I understand that Gritsuk has been excellent so far. Nemitz, is having a great season. Mercer's having a bounce back season after, kind of an ugly. How many years has Mercer been in the league? Gosh, we're getting old. It's like 4th or 5th year in the league. But he, didn't go to training camp. He missed a couple days of training camp last year, and it bit him in the rear end. But right now, he's turning it around. I don't care. None of that equals Quinn Hughes. I would totally do that every day of the week. There, Anthony. I'm not crazy about giving up Gritsuk, but you got to do what you got to do if you want Quinn. I feel like the underrated aspect of getting Quinn was getting Quinn for this cost controlled. I don't know what his exact number is right now, but if you can get him for a year and a half at let me just filibuster while I pull up his AAV right now. It is 7.85. I mean, that's a great number for Quinn Hughes. So yeah, if you could have got him there, I would have totally done that, even if it meant giving up Gritsuk. But we move on. Hughes, your daddy, sends us $5. And all he says is, all he or her says is, appreciate all that you do, Novo. Well, I appreciate you, Hughes, your daddy. You are the best, and we appreciate you for supporting our channel on that level. I cannot tell you guys how much I appreciate this. Our most super chats yet, but can we meet the goal? Because if we meet the goal, as I will show you right now, I will give away this bad boy. And it's nice, guys. It's nice. Hold on. I'm going to screen share this for you so you can see. Hold on. You're going to love this. I will be giving away this bad boy. Okay, it's the one on the left. It's the one all the way on the left. This guy right here. $40 value, and you can get it if you just send a $2 super chat or whatever the heck you want to send. I would appreciate it, guys, because I will be giving that away, and I will hand deliver it to you in the press box, or if you don't live in the States, or if you don't live in New Jersey, or you don't go to games, I will come bring it to you. I'll mail it to you or something like that. We'll figure it out. But we move on. Let's go to the chats. Oh my gosh, where do I even start? Holy crap. We'll start here with Rick Roma, who says, meanwhile, Billy G, referencing Bill Guerin, former Devil and the GM of the Minnesota Wild, says just put his balls on the table and is already winning over Quinn. I wouldn't be shocked if he stays in Mini. That just isn't Fitz just isn't a closer. That's part of the cons against Fitzgerald that we mentioned before. And I'll say this too. There's been some interesting reporting coming out of Minnesota. Michael Russo, who knows the Wild, and he's as tapped in of a beat reporter as any local beat reporter is across the country. He sat there and he said that part of the reason he thinks that Quinn might stay in Minnesota is that Quinn doesn't really want to affect Luke. Now I kind of like I'm in and out on this because I trust Michael as a reporter, and I very much do. But I also feel like that's these guys, like, I feel like brotherhood kind of sets all of that aside. Like it would put that by the wayside, and like they wouldn't really care about this. Luke, for Christ's sake, I mean, Luke says after the game the other day that he's totally wants Quinn to come play with him at some point in his career. And he said he wants him to come play in Jersey. And obviously the implication there, of course, is obvious because Luke is signed there now long term. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And we have a new super chat, so I am going to get to this right now. And this is Arthur. This is coming from Arthur. Don't want to get your name wrong. Arthur Kaken, or maybe Arthur K. Haken. Anyways, any word on Jack and Pesci's timetable? No exact word, although I did mention before, I did write before this, I got it confirmed. There was a Devils fan page, I think it was Devils Fanatics, that put out a leaked picture of Jack Hughes skating with a stick in his hand. And apparently you can't see it in the picture, but he's got a protective glove on one of his hands. But anyways, yes, that is from when I checked in with a source on this tonight. They said that yes, that is in fact real. Jack is in fact skating with a stick now, which wasn't the case last week when we asked Sheldon Key for an update. All of that points to me that things are progressing really, really positively. The source mentioned to me that it was good progress on the Jack front. And apparently, supposedly, Brett Pesce was also skating with him. Brett Pesce has been skating before practices as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see these guys. Look, we're one day closer to these guys coming back in the lineup. Obviously, that's kind of a cheap way for me to put it, but I will say that we're definitely one day closer. And with these two positive updates tonight, I feel like we're getting that much closer to them returning. No update exactly on exact timetables, but the reevaluation period is coming up within the next couple weeks, I think. So we shall see, but we move on. Mikey Mike says, aside from the obvious cap moves like Palat and Dougie, Pagnotta reports we are keying on a top six forward. Friedman says we are actively looking for ads. Any names you're hearing? No names I'm hearing necessarily. The only name that I've heard over the past couple weeks are the ones that have already been floated out, which is Ryan O'Reilly, Steven Stamkos, and I don't know if it's actually I haven't seen it reported anywhere, but the one that I'll throw in there is Braden Shen. I think the Devils have checked in on Braden Shen. Whether that would, they need center depth, but whether that would be a great ad or not, I don't know. But I know that people across the league value him for his leadership skills and everything like that. But I just don't know that that's the best ad right now. The one that I want to throw out there is Nazem Kadri. I feel like if the Devils were able to add him, I get that his price is high, but this is a guy that scored 35 goals last year, and you have to, that's got to count for something. So if they can get him, or if you can get Blake Coleman too, shore up that bottom six, woo, I would love that. I feel like he'd be such a good ad for this current Devils regime as well. Guys, we need one more super chat until I give it away the hat. So somebody just take one for the team and throw $1 or $2 in there. Come on. What are we doing? We are live. Direwolf says, hello, Ryan. New nightmare scenario is Quinn signs a 3-year extension and walks to UFA with Jack to go wherever they want. Fitz needs to do everything he can to salvage this season. Yeah, that is a nightmare scenario. There's no doubt about that. Look, this is it's scary, and I understand it. And I feel like echoing what I said before, the Quinn comments from yesterday, people might sit there and say, oh, what else is he going to say? But I feel like he could have gone a lot softer if he was just going to say the PR prepared statement from Wild PR or whatever. They would have directed him to speak in a different tone than basically throwing the other GMs under a bus and saying, hey, I will remember this whenever I'm resigning, pretty much. It all comes down to how do the Devils run over the next couple of years. Maybe that doesn't even matter. Maybe the brotherhood aspect of things will make Quinn just, he'll fawn over that, and he's already has his mind set. But look, that doomsday scenario is totally valid. Like the fact that you're sitting here wondering if they're gonna sign a 3-year deal and kind of line those up, and Jack walks in free agency too, is definitely concerning. I'd be concerned if I was a Devils fan in that regard too, because the Devils haven't, proven over the past couple of years that they can get over the hump, and not only get over the hump, but get past the mediocre hump. I mean, they kind of were crawling into the playoffs last year, and they end up losing another first round exit. They missed the playoffs the year prior. 2022-23 was great, but that feels like a long time ago, guys. That feels like a long time ago. And we got our super chat that gets us to the goal. Thank you so much. Dime season. Oh my gosh, Dime season. I feel like you're a Giants fan, Dime season, I believe. He says, hey, Novo, happy to support. Thank you so much for supporting us on that level. I very much appreciate that. With all these reports that we're looking to add in the top six, do you see us getting both a center and top six wing, or is it one or the other situation? I feel look. What I can tell you right now is that Fitzgerald's working the phones on a whole bunch of different scenarios. I feel like the goal is to get both. I feel like the goal is to get both. That's clear. Who that ends up being, look, the I feel like the goal right now too in the immediate future is to shore up the center depth. So I feel like that might be the one that might be addressed first, and it's also just kind of the easier one to get. And I understand that all these other teams are looking for centers across the league. And that's going to make competition a little tougher. But, it's one of those things that Fitzgerald, you have the assets now. Time to blow a team out of the water with an offer. Don't overpay. Don't overpay to a gross extent, but overpay a little bit for sure. With that said, the obvious candidates there, dime season, are Ryan O'Reilly, Steven Stamkos up the middle. I'll throw Nazem Kadri in there too. I'll throw Braden Shen in there as well. From the St. Louis Blues. Another Blue that I want to throw in there just because I think it would be such a great ad. And I feel like they're bad enough to where you can try to, see what you could pull off there is go try to get Jordan Kyrou. I feel like that would be such a great addition for the Devils top six whenever Jack gets back. Oh boy, I would just love that addition there. But thank you again, Time Season, for supporting us on the level. And thank you, everybody, for supporting us on that level. I very much appreciate that. Let's move on. Rick Roma says, I honestly don't even want to hear any names because I'll just be disappointed when Fitz can't get it done. Valid there, totally valid, but, we got to talk about it right now. And look, like I mentioned before, one of my points against Fitz was that he's somewhat turning the Devils into interest kings. We've heard these names, Devils connected to this name and that name, and the Devils came in second for this team or on this trade and everything like that over the past couple of years. The lesson Fitzgerald has to learn is move silent in these deals. Don't let it leak out. Let it leak out to me, at least, if you want to throw me a bone there, Fitzgerald. But come on, like get that big fish in New Jersey without all the hoopla around it or anything like that. We have another super chat. Thank you so much, Joseph Salvato. I don't want to butcher your name because you sent us a super chat and we support you. We appreciate you for supporting our channel on that level. Thank you very much, Joseph. Is Sheldon safe? I think unequivocally Sheldon Keefe is safe. Again, barring I feel like this happened with Dan Bylsma, where it's like, there was a regime change in Seattle, and the new GM. Am I misremembering this? Was there a new GM in Seattle? I can't remember, but they wanted their own guy in, kind of thing. That's the only scenario I can see happening is if Fitzgerald is gone and a new GM comes in and they want to get their own coach kind of in the mix here. That's literally the only scenario I can see. I can envision Sheldon Keefe being not safe. I feel like all things considered, Sheldon's actually done a very good job. Let me look at the man Gabe's lost to injury. The Devils, I think, are third in that regard in the league this year. And they're, just cursed at every corner, it feels like. So, yes, Sheldon is safe. He's way safer than Fitzgerald, I feel like, albeit the fact that Fitzgerald, as I confirmed before, is safe. But I feel like there's an asterisk on that because it's like he's safe if something, if they don't miss the playoffs or don't make the playoffs or anything. But I feel like Sheldon is safe. And they just hired him, you know what I mean? Let's move on. But thank you so much for supporting us on that level, Joseph. Where was I? Where was I in the comments? Ryan H says, disappointing time to be a Devils fan the last few years. Yeah, it sure has. And look, it's one of those things where you say, the once mighty franchise has kind of fallen into this where they're, a success story is making to the second round of the playoffs. The standard has to raise. The standard has to rise. It can't be just a second round playoff is the ceiling, or even making just the conference finals is a ceiling. No. The Devils need to go back to making Stanley Cups and winning Stanley Cups, and that being the standard. And that's why if there's a new voice in the room, hopefully that person, whoever it may be, winds up being the guy that can get the Devils back to that point, back to their dynastic roots, if you will. Because there is potential there too. This team is still oozing with potential. I feel like that kind of goes underreported in this, is that when healthy, the Devils are great. The Devils still can be a really great team. They have a really great core around them. It's just about patching those holes that Fitzgerald said at his opening presser that they didn't have. And evidently right now, I think we can all see, even with the injuries, they have. Let's move on. WK Gaming says, suffice to say, this season has become a train wreck in a short span. It has. I'll read you the numbers right here. I mentioned this last stream, but Devils are 18-14-1 this season. They're 6-10-0 without Jack Hughes. They're 10-13-1 since that 8-game winning streak ended. Doesn't that feel like a long time ago now? WK Gaming. That feels like a lifetime ago at this juncture. So yes, right now, not great. Guys, I want to just remind you real quick, if you're not a regular viewer, please like and subscribe. It'll help us grow the channel. Please consider throwing us a super chat. Once again, that will also help us grow the channel. We go live after every single game, and it's so much fun. So do this every game, and we're gonna have so much fun. Wednesday night versus the Golden Knights. After it's gonna be a late one, but we're gonna do it nonetheless. We move on. Steve KS says, how are those requests coming along to talk with Fitz? Still unsuccessful. We requested him as recently as 2 days ago. What was the... No, it was the Ducks game. We requested him to talk to him, me and my coworker, Steve Politi, because both of us were writing about Fitzgerald after the game. So we were, just putting in another request. And I think the response we were told is that, they don't anticipate that happening. And evidently it did not happen. Any sort of Fitz press conference or Fitz one-on-one or anything like that, it is not happening. Look, I can just say this. I have it on good authority that if the Devils do make a trade, Fitzgerald will be talking afterwards. So, it's going to be eventful, to say the least. It's going to be lots of questions to be answered, lots of questions to be had. I cannot wait for that. That's going to be a very fun day. Rick Roma, if Quinn wants to play with Luke, I'll have to wait. It'll have to wait until he's 33 years old. That's funny. That's funny. Look, that's one of the worries that you have if he does end up extending in Minnesota. Is the brotherly reunion only going to happen when these guys are out of their prime and washed and well past their prime? We'll see what ends up happening. Larry Blumenfield says, rumor out there that a deal was blocked by a player with trade protection. Can you confirm or deny that rumor? I can confirm that rumor. Don't know exactly which player it was, but the two ones that come to mind, we can read between the lines there, is that it was probably Andre Palat or Dougie Hamilton, who Kevin Weeks today reported have been out there in trade rumors and everything like that. The Devils are trying. I'll have more on that tomorrow, so be sure to follow me on Twitter if you don't already. I'm going to try to get to the bottom of that by going directly to the sources there. We'll ask them. Maybe they'll deny it. Maybe they won't. We'll see what ends up happening. But it can't hurt to try, right? Because that's got to be a frustrating thing for a player. Hold on. We have another super chat in the building. Hold on. Let me just make sure I bookmark your comment, Larry, so I know exactly where... Oh my gosh, we have 2 more super chats. Or no, never mind. I just bookmarked your comment, so it ended up being a star. Anyways, into ANTHR. Into Anther says, ownership seems to be disconnected. Devs are on low list of priorities after NFL, NBA soccer. Was never a fan of their purchase. I understand that sentiment to an extent. I'm not sitting here saying that like Josh Harris doesn't care about the team or anything like that. They're definitely spread thin. But I will say this: David Blitzer is at almost every game. I've seen David Blitzer at on elevators in like random games at Carolina. I've seen David Blitzer in random games at, in boxes at random games in some of the most random cities you could find. Um, I think the Devils ownership does care. I think that's an unfair narrative, but they're spread thin. I will say that they're spread thin. I think that's fair. They have a Commanders team that is dipping right now too. Notice the semi parallels between a lot of these Harris Blitzer franchises. It's like you got the Commanders who had their dream season last year. I feel like that was the Devils 22-23 season. Similar vibes there, and then they collapse the next year. That's like the Devils 23-24 season. Maybe they'll make a big trade this offseason for I was going to say for a goaltender, for a wide receiver or something like that, and get some better guys in the mix. Maybe there'll be even more perilous to that, because they're missing the playoffs this year. They're a train wreck. And then the Sixers too. I mean, they have a oft injured superstar in Joel Embiid, a la Jack Hughes with the Devils. So I think there's a lot of comparisons there. I think it's very interesting. But we move on. There's Larry. Arthur K. Haken says Elliot Friedman has reported the word Fitz is safe for now. Yes, and I confirmed that report just now. Exactly, and I look. The only reason I'm out there having to confirm Elliot Friedman's reporting, he's the best reporter in the freaking business. There's no need to do that. But it's just one of those things that I feel like when you're like a local guy, you just want to try to get it from your own people, kind of thing. That's what I was able to do today. Again, a team source told me that has direct lines to ownership and everything like that. So this person would certainly know. Duck Gusev. A challenge for you 78 people that are in the chat right now. This guy on Twitter, at DuckDuckGoosev. It's at DuckDuckGoosev. So it's his username minus the numbers at the end there that are on the little chat bubble. So it's just at DuckDuckGoosev. Okay. Tweet at him any random number from 1 to 99, and he will be able to tell you the most obscure Devils player who wore that. Okay, so that's a challenge for you guys. Go out there and go tweet at DuckDuckGoosev. I'm going to put it in the chat right now at DuckDuckGoosev. Tweet at him a random number, and he will give you the most obscure Devils player that wore that number. And he says, "Good evening, Ryan. I can't take this much longer. I don't blame you. But there was some positive Jack Hughes news tonight. And 2026 is creeping closer. I know the Devils still have some work to do before they can even get Jonathan Kovacevic back in the lineup. That's going to be so interesting to follow, guys. I'm sure there's a comment or two about that. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's something I'll try to poke around this week and try to figure out what the hell they're going to do. But that's a huge mystery right now. Let's see. Captain THC says Devils quote unquote fans need to stop calling for the axe on Fitz's head. Truth is, his job is safe, and the crybabies who think otherwise needs to STFU and grow up. Captain THC has had it. Maybe you need to go have some THC, Captain THC. Calm yourself down. I'm joking. No, I mean, listen, there's no doubt that he's safe right now. I just reported that off the top. Elliot Friedman reported that as well. But anything can happen. If this team doesn't make the playoffs, and I, in defense of these fans that are frustrated, I understand the frustrations. I listed off a huge laundry list of reasons as to the arguments kind of against Fitz, and right now, there are a lot of them. There's a pretty big list of them. Let's see. 1 second. I'm just gonna go ahead and just retweet the link to the stream once more. Sorry if you guys are getting that notification, but I don't care because I want more people in the stream, and there's been a very active chat right now, and I very much appreciate that. We move on. Joseph Salavato again says, besides Ryan O'Reilly, who else are the Devils targeting right now? The only two names that I can give you are Ryan O'Reilly. We mentioned that. Steven Stamkos and Braden Chen. Those are the names I can give you. I would hope that they would be in on Nazem Kadri as well. I would hope that they would be in on a bigger splash like a Jordan Kyrou, maybe a Jordan McCann or someone like that, or Jared McCann. So yeah, that's a big like hope message, I would say, but the ones that we know are Ryan O'Reilly, Braden Chen, and Steven Stamkos. Moving on. Rick Roma says Fitz got Palat a huge retirement contract, and he hasn't earned a penny of that. Palat should have done Fitz a solid and waived that no move clause. I get the sentiment. I truly, truly, truly get the sentiment. The problem is, it's not the player's fault. It's not the player's fault. Granted, maybe Fitzgerald should go, and I'm not advocating for this because this might be against some sort of rule, but maybe Fitzgerald should go to Palat and just say, hey, we're scratching you. We're gonna make your life, kind of uneasy here in Jersey until you waive that no move clause. Like, it's not gonna be pretty for you. That's cutthroat. That's something we would never find out unless Andre Palat admitted it that was happening. But that's cutthroat. That is cutthroat. That's what he has to do, guys. As a reminder for the super chat, guys. So I am going to give away give away the hat, but I'll be doing that on the. I'll open the show with that next stream, which is going to be on Wednesday after the Golden Knights game. So if you want to receive your hat, send me a message or tweet me on Twitter or something like that, and we'll see. But I'm going to pick that winner after the next stream, which is going to be Wednesday night after the Golden Knights game. Move on. Captain THC, half the team is hurt right now. Fans weren't kicking Fitz to the curb when we were on an 8-game heater. They'll calm down once Fitz finally makes a deal and we are healthy and winning again. We'll see about that. I feel like Devils fans have good memories. Look, there is something too that I feel like if Fitzgerald, if Fitzgerald, I'm not sitting here like I don't want Fitzgerald to be fired. Like I'm not like you don't want anyone to be fired. But the facts are the facts, and like the fact is, I don't think he's an advantage for the Devils right now. So that has to factor in to his job security at the end of the season, which is when the conversation will probably be had, barring some sort of disaster that happens to this team from then to now, or from now to then. But I just feel like unless he learns from the mistakes that I mentioned off the top there, Captain THC, I just don't see the fan sentiment on him really changing. And that's barring a cup run too. Like if they go all the way to the cup, I feel like, fans are just gonna get over it, man. Metalander, there will be no trades. He handed out too many no move clauses in every contract, but a few. Yes, as I reported the other day, Fitzgerald and the Devils lead the league in giving out no move clauses and no trade clauses on the current or pending contract for players. They have 15. The league average is 11.25, I think. So they're 4 players above average, and they're tied with the Carolina Hurricanes and Edmonton Oilers, who, by the way, those two teams, those two GMs end up, seemingly are willing to make not only trades but blockbuster trades. The Hurricanes, especially, like they made 2 blockbuster trades last year. They are never shy about doing that. They traded. They trade for this offseason. I'm blanking on his name. The defenseman that used to play for the Rangers. Why am I blanking on his name? It's such an obvious player. He's a great player. Carolina Hurricanes defenseman. This is gonna bother me so much. I just for some reason Keontae Miller. I just don't know why. It was just like a brain glitch right there. But anyways, we move on. Yeah, the Devils are leading in that category. Rick Roma, if Quinn signs an extension with Minnesota on July 1st, does that have any effect on Tom's job? It should. It should. I think that Fitz will be evaluated after the season anyway, on all the points that I mentioned before. But that should totally have that might actually be the final dagger, because I know ownership really wants Quinn Hughes. Little doubt about that. Larry Blumenfield, Lou was hired midseason. Yes, good point there, Larry. Very good point. Historic point there. Captain CHC again. That Timo deal was a great deal. No, I'm not saying it this time. Captain THC. Let's see. You guys are just chatting there. Anthony Gregano says Fitz can make solid trades for the most part. Meyer, Marino, Graves, name a few, but the man is whiffed on the draft and UFAs. The draft for sure. The UFAs, yeah. The Dougie signing was great for a while. The Dougie signing especially kind of broke the floodgates for players signing in New Jersey and things like that. But yeah, the free agent signings have not been great. I'll give him Connor Brown though. Connor Brown has been a really good signing so far, so give him that. EZ says we need top 6 more than D like Quinn, who are sellers. Nashville's obvious, and Devils are better without Stamkos and Ryan O'Reilly than without. But who else is a high impact top 6 that may be available? Jordan Kyrou, That's the one I'll throw out there. If you want to say that, if you want to call Nazem Kadri a top six forward, sure. Buffalo is one that you have to add. Oh my God, they're glitching right there. Buffalo's a team that you have to add right now as well because they made a GM change today, and Jarmo Kekalainen is has a propensity for the big splashy trade. That is definitely the names that I would throw out there right now. Let's see if Fitzgerald can get any of those done. ESPN NHL trade board. Let's look at these and see if the Devils should be in on any of these guys. I know that there was one like 5 days ago. Yes, exactly 5 days ago. Okay, so I'm gonna screen share right here for you people, and we are going to take a gander at this from our friend Greg Wyszynski, future friend of the show, Greg Wyszynski, because I'll probably get him on at some point. Let's see. Of course, I'm probably not gonna have ESPN Plus or something like that. Elite pending free agency tier. Any of these guys in here that Devils should go after? Jordan Eberle, maybe. I could see that. I can see Fitz biting on Boone Jenner. That just feels like a Tom Fitzgerald move right now, doesn't it? Evander Kane, I can't see it. Mason Marchment, maybe. None of these really are big needle movers, except for like I'd be fine with Eberle. I would really like Alex Tuck. I think that this is the winner of this category. That's the winner of this category. I think that would be a really, really good move if he could somehow get him. Elite players with term tier. Let's see. Jonathan March. So I know that he's been in, he's got a history with Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald has a history with him because he was linked to the Devils just a number of years ago in free agency and signing him. So maybe, and Steven Stamkos fits that category as well. LOL, I don't see it happening, but it would be hilarious. Braden Shen, yes, that the Devils, I'm sure are I'm almost positive they're in on him. Nazem Kadri would be great. I think that would be a really good ad, especially if they can get some retention there. Owen Tippett, I don't see Philly kind of moving him in division. I feel like they're one of those teams that operates that way. Other than that, I mean, I did name a lot of names there. I feel like this tier is the one to really watch out for with the Devils, especially like the term guys, because I feel like Fitz loves that. But we move on. 25 and under tier. Ooh, this is fun. Oh, that would be great. This is the move right here. That would be great. Add a little. That would be great for Gritsuk as well, because I think they infamously hung out when they were in Columbus together. Brad Lambert, I remember him being in trade rumors a couple weeks ago. I don't know. This won't happen, but it would be funny. And other than that, I don't really see anybody in this tier. Goalie tier. Oh man. The Colorado Avalanche rebuilt their goalie situation within such a short span of time. The Devils should do that. They probably shouldn't go after him because I think he's statistically the worst goalie in the league right now. But couldn't you just see that? Couldn't you see the Devils kind of buying low on him? Maybe you swap him. What's his contract? I don't know at the top of my head. But that would be Markstrom and a pick for Jordan Binnington. Who says no? I don't know. Probably everybody. Oh man, wow, Nico. Yeah, I could see that happening too. I feel like the Devils should be. We'll probably end up doing that, right? Because if they're good, they shouldn't, but they probably will. Elvis Merzlikins. There you go. That's an interesting one. I felt the Devils should have taken a gander at him a number of years ago. Maybe. Like I feel like that was like before the big Fitz made his big game hunting kind of thing for goalies. I thought that was one that they should probably buy low on. And he's not great, I understand that, but it's a name. I feel like anything is better than Markstrom right now. And let me see his. Let's go to this right now, and let's look at his nerd numbers. Merzlikins. Oh my God, I spelled it wrong. Oh, never mind. Never mind. Okay, you could just see those guys right there. Yeah, next. I don't think that would do anybody any good. But we move on. Let's move on. Sorry I spent so much time on that question. It was a little deep dive on that. Captain THE, the worst deal Fitz made was baffling this marquee extension. That might be his biggest F up. I think it's by far his biggest F up because right now it's not aging great, and I don't see any way that this turns around and Markstrom ends up being a good thing for this team. Stanley says Ruff shouldn't have been hired in the first place. We were talking about earlier. One of my knocks against Fitz is kind of his lack of cutthroat attitude, and I feel like that is exemplified in the firing of Lindy Ruff, where he kind of sat on his hands for a while there, didn't make any action there, and it ended up being far too late for them to do it. Zach Chin with a question of the day. These are the best. You guys will learn these characters. Zach Chin right here, he's like the question of the day man. So I appreciate him. If you guys start tuning into our streams regularly, which you should, you'll start seeing his name a lot. Zach Chin says, even if Fitz makes a major move soon, might his goodwill have run out in the locker room to the point that the players have no confidence in him? It might just be conjecture. It might just be, what players are saying right now. But I do think that Fitzgerald is still liked in that locker room. Granted, again, that might just be something you're saying to the reporter that you just want him to shut him up when he's asking you these annoying questions. But there's an argument to be had there. Major move withstand like the major move would have to be a dramatic, like you get a scoring wing, you get like that elite scoring wing that you need to place on or to plunk on Jack's wing. That would be like, all right, like, what are you complaining about? But if he tries to patchwork this with just like Steven Stamkos, then yeah, your goodwill is, I would say, has run out. Easy says, how hard is it really to get out of bad contracts if we attach a pick? Other GMs are able to do it, Easy. Other GMs are able to do it. I don't know why Fitzgerald hasn't been able to. Ryan H, no confidence with management. We need to change, or this season and core is done. The core, I think, is still alive. I think, if this GM job opened up tomorrow, it would be the most coveted GM job in the league, obviously. It's them and the Sabres. But I feel like them this offseason, like, let's try to predict which GMs might be out this offseason. I mean, I can't even think off the top of my head right now. But I feel like, of the list of teams where that's potentially, where that could potentially happen, I feel like the Devils would be at the top of that list, the very top of that list. Moving on. Chico Tazo 69 says Palat might be one of the worst signing in Devils history, not because he himself has been that bad, though he has been bad. I was going to say, come on, what are you talking about, Chico Tazo? But everything they can't do because of him is being an anchor. Great point. Look, it's an albatross contract, and now it's affecting them in more ways than one. It's affecting them in the cap room department, in the cap space department, and now it's affecting them in their pursuit of these other trades, because presumably Palat is one of those guys that they tried trading. Look, the other one that we have to talk about as being a massive stain for the Devils is Dougie Hamilton. The Dougie Hamilton contract was great for years. I'm not denying that. However, right now he's fallen off such a major cliff that I don't know. Like I don't know that any team will want to take that on. Just my 2 cents there. Moving on. Sograd says, I don't mind Palat getting a no-trade clause for 3 years. Fairly standard is in that UFA tier, but 21-team no-trade clause in the last 2 years is crazy. Exactly. Look, and that's the point is like, if you're going to hand these no-trade clauses, no-move clauses out like they're candy, then you better have those shrink for, at the end of the deal, right? You better have those shrink at the end of the deal. I mean, for God's sake, like the Markstrom one is bad too. Like it's like a 20-team no move clause next year. I think it's 20, maybe 25. I think it's 20 though. And then if you think about that, it might as well be 32 teams because these guys can change those no trade clauses and change the teams that are on them. So they're going to change it to the teams that won't be on it are going to be the Rangers, are going to be the Winnipeg Jets, are going to be the teams that the Minnesota Wild. Teams that have their goaltending situations figured out. Teams that have their goaltending situations figured out are going to be left off Jacob Markstrom no trade list. So you might as well have a 32-team no trade list because there are 12 situations in the league, I'm sure. I haven't checked, but where goaltending situations are shored up, and they're not going to want to take up on Jacob Markstrom. And frankly, even with like no trade protection, I feel like they would be SOL in trying to get off that deal. Captain THC, you can make a list like that for most GMs in the league, to be fair. I think you're referencing the list I made before. Yeah, it's probably a good point, but I feel like there's a lot of GMs there that are a little more cutthroat than Tom Fitzgerald is. And we have a show to do today about the Devils, so we're going to talk about the Devils. Ryan H. Also, we cannot lead into Jack, continue to lead into Jack, because chances are he can get hurt again, and season after season we slide. I know for a fact that before this freak injury, which was in fact a freak injury, obviously, and even last season's was a freak injury for sure. But I know that the consensus around Jack was that he got a lot, like his shoulders were a lot stronger and now more. Devils management, Devils front office feels a lot more confident in Jack's ability to shy away from those injuries. We'll see what that means. Can he avoid injury? We're not, we don't want to jinx him or anything, but like it would be, there's a serious question as to whether you should lean into Jack because of the injuries that have happened right now. That's for sure. And his proneness to injuries. We're gonna move on from that one. Chico Tazo, the Quinn quote definitely reads like, "I'm mad. I have to wait 2 more years to be where I want." That's an interesting perspective. I actually like that, Chico Tazo. I haven't really considered that. But yeah, that could be it. It could be just like, man, I really wanted to go to the Devils. Like why couldn't you guys make that big move? And things will be hugs and kisses whenever, with Fitzy, as he called him, when he does, if he does come here in 2 years. But we'll see. Because I think there's also reports leaking out that Quinn might be leaning towards resigning there. But it's impossible to know right now. Well, guys, that is going to do it. We streamed for an hour here today. I appreciate all your super chats. Thank you to all of you who contributed there. We will be doing the hat giveaway at the beginning of next stream, Wednesday night, late night against the Vegas Golden Knights. After that game, I will be giving away that hat, that Devils hat, and you guys will love it. To one of those 7 people who super chatted. So we appreciate you guys doing that. That is awesome. I appreciate that. And we'll figure out the logistics whenever you guys win, figure out the logistics of how we get that to you. But thank you, all of you for tuning in today. It was a lot of fun. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Please be sure to tell your friends, and I will talk to you guys Wednesday. Bye-bye. I'll talk to you Wednesday, barring any crazy news at practice. Maybe I'll stream after practice tomorrow. Bye-bye.